5, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Talks. I am your host, Sumana Jeddy. Super excited to be here. We had, of course, a few kind of minor technical issues, but everything's sorted out. You are joining us today on Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday. I love Wednesday. Today, we're restreaming this event to LinkedIn, to YouTube. I'm also on Instagram. So if you're watching me on Instagram, head over to my bio. There is a link there. You can watch this event on YouTube. Andy is also live streaming it to his YouTube. So there's multiple different ways that you can watch this show. I am pumped up today. I am going to just do a quick land acknowledgement. I'm joining you today from the Treaty 6 territory from Edmonton. And I am super excited today because now I met Andy on Clubhouse, I think about a year ago. And when I met him, I just met him, of course, on Clubhouse. We didn't really know each other very well. Super inspirational. Love his podcast voice. Love his book. And I love when he says, let's go, which is totally my vibe. I am so excited to bring him on stage in just a couple minutes. But before we do that, few rules of engagement. We always share this in our live for Wellness Talks. Number one, I want you to comment. This is an very engaging show. So comment. Make sure to also react on your LinkedIn. I won't be able to see your reactions, but I'm sure if you're clapping or if you're giving me a thumbs up or if you're giving us hearts, we can see that on your LinkedIn. Make sure to ask Andy a question. So that is important. If you have a question, this is your opportunity to ask him a question. And there is a Starbucks gift card winner at the end of the show. I did pull out a few names. If you registered for the event, I'm going to pull out a name and there's going to be a winner at the end of the show. And that's it. Why should we invest in learning for our wellness and development? That is the vibe for today. Let's bring Andy up and let's just get this party started. Let's go. Hello, Andy Storch.
Hello, Sumana Jeddy. I'm so excited. Let's go.
I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for saying yes. I remember when I messaged you on LinkedIn to say, hey, Andy, do you want to do a Wellness Talks live with me? I remember a few hours later, I saw a picture of you at VCon with Gary V, and I'm thinking, there's no way Andy is going to say yes to me. He doesn't even know me. Who am I? And then within seconds, you said, absolutely, I'd be delighted to do it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. What do you mean I don't know you? We met on Clubhouse. I've been following you on Instagram ever since. I see all of your fun, creative, quirky stories and reels about wellness and burnout. And, I'm at a conference hosted by Gary V. So, of course, I've got to pay attention to content, right? And make sure I'm checking the socials while I'm there. And I was posting a lot of stuff. And, I'm also running a business. So I got to check my messages. And I was flattered. I was honored when you invited me. So, of course, I'm going to say yes.
Thank you so much. And I think you are my first guest. I think we're in the exact same time zone, aren't we? What time is it for you? Where are you?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Florida. So it's 1 p.m. Eastern here.
Oh, okay. So sorry. Okay, so you're Eastern time zone. You're not in
Yeah.
Mountain time zone. That's okay.
No, no,
Eastern time zone is totally okay.
yeah.
Now, I want to talk to you about. I have a bunch of questions here. I've been listening to your book. I love your podcast. Like I said, I love your podcast voice. Super inspirational. Like you are one of those people that if I listen to you, I'm like, I want to listen to Andy all day. Like he is just like a super awesome human being. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I don't want you to tell me things that we already know from your website. We know
Okay.
a lot about you. So tell me something about you that is not on your LinkedIn profile and you just want to share with the world. What is it?
What is not on my LinkedIn profile? What's not on my LinkedIn profile that I want to share with the world? I have like an obsession, I think, with getting the most out of life. And I want to not just do it for myself, right? I want to inspire other people to do the same in whatever version that is for them. And I'm really, I guess, obsessed with the idea of legacy and what value I'm providing to the world. And that drives me to continue to build and do the work that I'm doing, to always be trying to create things, to do things to help other people. And I know you're driven by this as well, but also to have a lot of fun along the way, right? And take care of my health. I'm in the gym every day. I have a family and I like to spend a lot of time with them. And this requires, I think, a lot of discipline and, some say balance, boundaries, whatever. But I think it's one thing to say, hey, I'm really all about growing this business and creating content and I'm working 80 hours a week, but I'm trying to do this in 40 hours a week because I have all these other things that I really care about. And I don't want to miss out on anything that's going on in life. Some might say I have a fear of missing out. I suffer from FOMO sometimes. But that might be the big thing that is like driving me, that's not maybe directly on my LinkedIn profile.
Oh, I love that. I just want to make sure, Matt, if you can hear
Yeah.
me, is LinkedIn working? Is this being live streamed to LinkedIn? Because I see a little error message there. Are we good? Just give me a little message
Uh,
if we're good.
Samana, I'm looking at LinkedIn on my other screen over here, and it looks like we are live on mine.
Okay,
So,
okay, good.
yeah.
Okay, good. As long as everything is good, because this is happened once before,
Yeah.
and it's been good for a couple of weeks, and now, like, okay. Anyways, let's move on from that. The one thing that I wanted to ask you, though, because this whole conversation about wellness and development, for me, I'm a huge
Mm,
fan of learning, and when I was listening to your podcast as well, you make this analogy about doctors and accountants wanting to learn. So I come from healthcare, public health. That's my space. And in that space, we never stop learning. After I finished my undergraduate in microbiology, I immediately was like, oh my God, what's my next step? I got to do grad school. After that was done, I'm like, oh my God, do I need to do another MBA? Ended up pivoting towards entrepreneurship, which is where we are right now. My question to you is, in the burnout space, when millennials and busy professionals are really burnt out,
mm,
how do we continue to integrate learning and development in our space when parents and just our life is so busy and we're so
yeah.
burnt out, we don't have the capacity to learn, but we
Yeah.
want to continue learning? Because that's something that I did,
Right.
and that sort of pushed me over the edge. So share with me a few thoughts on that one, please.
Yeah. So the challenge here is that something like learning is something that we know is important, that we probably should do it. And I hate the word should, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
implies that you have to do something that maybe you might not want to. There's no rules, right? But we feel like I really need to keep learning. And I'm a big advocate. Obviously, I have a chapter in my book about the importance of a continuous learning. And in the middle section of my book, it's all about preparing for the future of work, setting yourself up for future success. And I recommend three main things to do that. One is investing in continuous learning. The next thing is building your network. And the third thing is building your personal brand. Now, the thing about these three things that we could be doing to prepare for the future is that they're all important, but they're not urgent. There's no one ever usually standing over your shoulder saying, like, hey, have you read that book or have you listened to that podcast? Like, you need to learn. Instead, as you mentioned, we're bombarded with emails, social media notifications, requests from our boss, from our spouse, from our kids, from our pets, right? Like all these people that want things from us or want us to do things. And I think at the end of the day, like we've got to, it comes down to really two things. One is prioritization and like understanding what is most important to you. Most people go through life drifting along and operating in reaction mode, which means most of their time is spent reacting to other people, to requests, to things that are going on in the world. And they're not being really thoughtful and intentional about how and where they're spending their time. So, one is
Mm-hmm.
prioritization and asking yourself, okay, what is most important to me? And recognizing that if health and fitness truly is really important to you, that you will make time to do that and maybe do less work. Like let some things fall to the wayside that, like, frankly, if you think about it, are not that important, right? And then number two is time management. So, how are you managing your time? How are you structuring your day and your week to be able to get those things done? Are there things that you're doing that frankly aren't that important and don't provide that much value? Like how much sports are you watching? How much Netflix are you watching? That sort of thing. Sometimes I think about it, and I put this in my book. There's something called the Eisenhower Matrix that was originally created
Yes.
by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was our president, U.S. president in the 1950s. And it was also sort of popularized by Stephen R. Covey in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And
Mm-hmm.
in that matrix, it's a simple 2x2 matrix. At one axis, you have the level of importance for the thing that you're doing. And then on the other axis, say the horizontal axis, you have the level of urgency. And what they posited is that most people spend a lot or all of their time in the urgency column, right? Whether it's important or not important, we're responding to the urgent things. And you have these things that are important but not urgent, like learning, networking, that sort of stuff that doesn't really get that much attention because, again, no one's ever saying like, hey, Samana, have you read that book today, right? So that's where we have to build in the time. We have to recognize what's important to us, build in the time, schedule it, and say, I'm going to read. For me, I'm really big on the morning routine, being intentional in my morning. So I'll read for, say 15, 20 minutes every morning. Other people might say, I'm going to take a lunch break and I'm going to read, which in this day and age just seems so crazy that you're going to take a lunch break, but it's okay. And because it's important, right, that we take that time for learning and for our wellness, as you know.
Yes, and I also say that lunch and learns, I'm not a huge fan of lunch and learns, which is why I try to schedule these wellness lives either in the morning or after lunch. So anybody here on Instagram watching, please join us on YouTube. There's a link in my bio. You can just click that link and head over to either YouTube or to LinkedIn to watch it. You can also watch us here. I don't know if you can hear our conversation this way, but you guys here on LinkedIn and YouTube, put your questions and thoughts and comments in the chat box there. We can definitely see them, and I can identify if you're a LinkedIn or a YouTube user as well. Going back to this idea of learning and prioritizing learning and managing your time effectively, I love the Eisenhower matrix. It's huge. I've used that basically my entire career to manage my own sort of wellness and
Hmm.
my manager responsibilities when I was a manager. The one
Yeah.
question that I do have for you though is when we are again in the culture, when we're developing a culture of wellness and developing a culture of learning, a lot of it really does come from leadership. Leadership plays a really important part in how the employees
Sure.
see leaders. So if I'm the manager and if I'm taking my lunch break to listen to a podcast or I'm walking out of the office to do certain behaviors, employees see that, they love it, they want to kind of mimic that. But what do you do when the organization is not really meeting you in that same objective and there isn't that culture of wellness in the organization? What can the organization do to empower learning in the environment?
Yeah. So first of all, this is a challenge, right? And I do see organizations moving in the direction of making time or building it into the culture, whether they're creating a so-called learning culture or they're saying, "Hey, we're going to have dedicated time." I just did a keynote for a financial services firm that is now establishing no meeting Fridays, right? Where they're saying like, "Hey, take Fridays for your development." I've worked with a couple different companies that are doing some version of this. Take Fridays for your development. That's a great day to meet with your manager and talk about your career and like projects and that sort of thing, and spend some time on your own learning and development. Because the challenge, of course, is and I talk to a lot of people from big companies. I work with a lot of people in learning and development, talent development. They talk to me about their engagement surveys, and what they're hearing from people is that they are hungry for more development and growth. People are hungry for development. They want that growth, and they also feel overwhelmed, like they don't necessarily have time for it, right? So number one is like, hopefully you can find an organization, be in an organization that is recognizing the importance of that. It is important for leadership, as you said, to set the tone by placing an importance on it themselves and supporting others in it. Because if you say like, "Oh yeah, I want you to learn things," but where were you on during lunch today? I was trying to get a hold of you because we need to work on this project, right? You're kind of saying two different things, and you're showing that it's not as important. If you are in an organization that doesn't necessarily support that, you've got number one, you got to ask yourself, is this the right place for you? And it might be, right? And I just did an episode about this for my podcast next week that was actually inspired by a podcast I listened to from my friend Leanne Hughes, who talked about evaluating like whether you're in the right job, right? Whether you're in the right career. And I think there's some questions that you can ask, like how much does it align with your purpose and like what you want to do? Do you have growth potential there? Does it align? Take advantage of your strengths. Like, are you enjoying it? Or, are you fulfilled in this job? And then the second thing is to think about, well, where can I build in this time otherwise? As I mentioned, I'm big on the morning routine. So I spend usually 15 minutes reading every morning before my kids get up, before the workday starts, right? When it's nice and quiet and there aren't really any distractions, right? I do some
Hmm.
journaling during that time. And then usually I'll listen to a podcast while I'm taking the dog for a walk after I could drop my kids off at school, right? Finding time where you can build that in. And, for other people, it might be that lunch break. It might be at the end of the day, and it might replace something that wasn't a big value add, right? You tend to spend an hour a day scrolling through Instagram or some other social media, right? Or spend 2 hours a day watching Netflix. And these things are okay, right? There's no judgment. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with it. I think the important thing is to take stock of how and where you're spending your time and ask yourself, is the way I'm spending my time serving me, or could I spend this in another way? I did a post about this on LinkedIn this week because I was on a podcast a couple days ago, and a friend asked me, how are you so productive? And I get that question a lot because I host 3 podcasts, I run a business, I've got a family, I go to the gym every day, all that stuff. I got dog sitting this week, and I have dogs behind me. Um, uh, and one of the things I usually say beyond like time management and scheduling things and all that sort of stuff is I'm constantly asking myself the question, is how I'm spending my time serving me? Is it helping me advance my goals, or is it not? Right. And we often get just pulled into these things that either, our boss wanted us to do, or we just like got distracted, or we think society says that we need to do. Like, I have to watch every sports game. Like, that used to be me in my 20s. Right. Right. And I realized, like, how much time am I wasting watching a bunch of other people play with a ball? And like, I could be out there, getting some exercise or doing something more productive with my time. And I sort of stopped. And again, no judgment. Everybody can spend their time however they want. But we all have, 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week, whatever. We all have different responsibilities, different elements to our lives. But we all also get to take ownership of our time and how we're spending our time and what we're spending our time on. And that starts with self-reflection, self-awareness to really look at, where am I spending my time? Where could I build in a little bit of learning? Could I read for 10 minutes in the morning? Could I listen to a podcast instead of the morning zoo or whatever on my way to work? Just really thinking about how you can use your time more wisely.
Yeah, wonderful, like wonderful things. All of those things that you said, I was reflecting back to the time when I finished grad school, and the one component of grad school that I loved the most was not the paper writings. Of course, we have to write a lot of papers. Was the seminar learning, where we would just get together in a group. We would have a debate or a discussion or a paper to review. I'm from infectious disease surveillance, so we would do a lot of that conversation, and it was really wonderful to sit with a group of people and just exchange ideas. And that's a really great way of learning as well. Learning doesn't always have to be just one way. I look at this Wellness Talks Live that I do and the summits that we do as a way for you people in the audience here on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're joining us from, to also learn. This is a great way to just sit and listen actively and pay attention to some of the new ideas that you may not be aware of. Let's just read a comment here from Imran Rauf MD. Hi Imran, how are you? Nice to see you. It's been a minute. Wellness learning is about rewiring our brains. Some activities such as music, art, reading, exercise, brief social phone calls with friends and family are known to boost cognitive abilities. Some of my activities include light music during my break, talking. And the comment goes on. Any thoughts on that comment?
Well, what comes to mind, I love this comment from Imran, is to also remember that we all have different learning styles. And I also want to wave to Rebecca Ryan, who joined recently. I see her around on social media in different places. So hi, Rebecca. It's a reminder that we all have different learning styles and different personalities and the ways we operate. And so we don't need to feel like we have to adopt to the way other people learn, right? So for example, I do like reading books. Uh, for some reason, I don't really listen to many. I like listening to podcasts. I don't listen to audiobooks. I don't know why. I don't watch much YouTube. Some people love to learn on YouTube. They're watching videos all the time. Videos don't necessarily do it for me. I'm more of a social learner, so I do a lot of networking. It's hard for me to focus very long on one thing, so I do a lot of networking and I have conversations. I interview people. I'm very curious, and so I ask people a lot of questions, and I think I learn more from others. But some people might be, say you're more introverted, cerebral, like you're able to focus longer. Maybe reading is much more for you, right? And not necessarily through networking. So like, get to know your own style. Do you prefer videos? Do you prefer books? Do you prefer audiobooks? Do you prefer podcasts? Is it networking? Like, what is it? What's your style? Where do you tend to absorb information the best? And then go towards that and spend that time learning, and don't apologize to anybody about it.
Yeah, so I'll ask the audience watching, what is your learning style? I had that question in the beginning and I forgot to ask you that question. What is your learning style? Do you prefer audio, video, seminars like this? Do you prefer just some quiet time? I love audiobooks, which is why I love, again, because Andy has such a good podcast voice and audiobook voice. I'm like, I have to listen to his audiobook. It's just so calming and so inspirational. I love it. So I listen to audiobooks a lot. I have a really hard time. I think this is just from undergraduate and graduate school, just reading a ton of papers. I just have a
Yeah.
really hard time reading. I'm trying to read more books. I do have a few books here. We have Joseph Bennett, who just wrote a book called Rest, the Art of Rest. I think that's the name of the book. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Anyways, I have to read the book. There isn't an audible copy, but I can guarantee you, Joseph, I'm going to read the book because it is a small, cute book. I'm going to read it. We also have a comment here from Vinay. Let's read that. Do you want to read that, Andy?
Yeah. So Vinay said, so I have a problem when people talk about learning in general. Learning often reaffirms beliefs versus shifts perspective. What my perspective on math as a 14-year-old versus a 40-year-old is different. Real learning happens when people shift perspectives. How do you see companies can help people up level perspective versus just getting more head knowledge in support of what they already know? Ooh, that's an
Mm.
interesting one. Sort of like reinforcing things that you already know. And there are some biases that come with that, right? And you're always looking for reinforcement. It's sort of like, certainly don't need to delve into politics, right? But if you are in favor of one side, you can easily find tons of books and websites and cable news channels that will reaffirm your beliefs, even though they are drastically different than what is being said on the other side. And certainly that can be said in other topics as well. I think it's really important for companies and for us as people to gain different perspectives, like learn about the latest and newest ideas and things that are coming out there, because that's where innovation comes from, right? I've studied innovation in companies as well, and like the number one thing phrase that kills innovation in companies is we've tried that before, it doesn't work, right? Like yeah, we already know how to do it. Like this is how we do it. We don't do it any other way, right? It's like there might be a new way of doing things, right? And so we've got to be willing to open our minds to that. And so I think, Vinay, to your point, like learning includes both. I think we can get better at the things that we already know. I always want to adopt a beginner's mindset, right? And never feel like I'm an expert. Other people can look at me as an expert if they want to. I'm never going to see myself as an expert because I know I always have more to learn, sort of on this journey with everybody else. And if you read my
Mhm.
book, like, I don't pretend that I made all this stuff up, right? I share all the other books and people that I learned from, and I'm always continuing to learn. And, sometimes I'm learning things that are reinforcing things that I already know, but I also want to open my mind to, hey, what else is out there? What are some new ways and approaches and things that are being done? And who else is talking about this besides maybe the same people they're listening to? So yeah, I do think that's important.
Yeah, and that's super important as well. I know that all of us have different styles of learning. We have Ty McKinney here who says group based learning is something that he likes. Loves the social connection, accountability to stay on track. Rebecca says I love watching podcasts on YouTube, audio and video for me. Joseph's book actually is the Rest, the Art of Doing Less. That is the book. I'm sorry, Joseph, I forgot the name of your book. And Emran says my preference is reading and curated seminars or webinars. Not a big fan of long videos. I totally get that, which is another reason why these lives are short and sweet. We keep them nice and tight, so you get the most value from spending your time here. I know watching can be fun, especially when it's live. I think it's fun because you get to see us stumble a little bit. I think I stumbled in the beginning when I couldn't get into LinkedIn, but we figure it out. You get to see us live and see our reactions live, which is different when I was moving away from public health into this world of entrepreneurship, videos and TikToks. I mean, I'm way more comfortable in front of a video camera now, but when I was first making content, Andy, they were not pretty. They were so bad because you're learning something new. You're learning the
That's
skills
right.
really new, and that's okay. The beginner mindset that you mentioned is wonderful. Talk to me a little bit about. I want to dive into a little bit more about this lifelong learning
Mhm.
concept. So, audience, if you are a lifelong learner, give me your favorite emoji to describe that. I know there's a bit of a lag between the time I say my question and when you get it, but tell me if you're a lifelong learner, what that means to you as well. Um, the reason I want to ask you that is my entire brand is micro learning. I think learning is so important, but integrating
Mm,
learning into the culture of the organization again is
yeah.
so important. And when you go to your supervisor and you say, listen, and this is a story I'll just share with you really quickly.
Mm.
I wanted to go into leadership training when I was in my second year of management. I did 5 years of management. So in my second year of management, I wanted to go into business, to leadership training, and I didn't really enjoy the content that was delivered by the organization. So my approach to the boss was, "Hey, boss, why don't I take something from Harvard? There's a really cool online course that I can take. It's only like $3,000. I'll pay half, you pay half. Let's figure this out." The answer back was a solid no. You need to take what's available to you by the organization.
Mm.
I mean, come on. How do you deal with that? So now I'm left with no money because I have to spend all of this money out of pocket to learn. But I also don't want to take something that is very old school, not really fitting my values and my vibe.
Yeah.
How do you deal with something like that if you are a lifelong learner?
That's tough. Yeah. So, first of all, I love the concept of lifelong learning, right? I think it's self-explanatory to many people, and most of us probably consider us, ourselves that, and it's really important, right? Because we know that the world is changing fast. The business world is really changing all the time, and so the days of getting a college degree or even a master's degree and working in that field for 40 years and not really needing any other education, right? Like those are over. We do need to be continuously learning or become lifelong learners. I don't think that means we need to keep going back to school and getting formal degrees, right? If that's your thing, then like go for it. But you can also do all your education on YouTube, right? Or reading books or taking online courses. And I've done many of those as well. Now, the challenge here, of course, is you work for an organization. They do provide some resources, maybe not a ton. You want to learn a specific skill that you think will help you do your job better or advance, your own skills, and you'd like for your employer to pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if they won't? Right? If they say, "Hey, we already have these other resources over here," I think that's where you have a decision to make. And by the way, the fact that you're even going in that direction, puts you ahead of a lot of people, right? Most people will just either take what's given to them by their company, or they don't even think about learning because they're still in that reaction mode that we talked about earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something I tell people a lot is the importance of a continuous learning. You've got to be willing to go invest both time and money. So don't be afraid to even invest your own money, right? If those opportunities are not that. I've personally invested thousands of dollars in lots of different things, online courses, conferences, mastermind groups, coaches, you name it, all kinds of stuff, so that I can continuously be learning. And I'm still doing that all the time, right? I'm in online communities. I'm going to more conferences this year. So I think you got to look at, okay, is this a worthwhile investment? Is it definitely going to help you do your job better? And if so, can you go back and try to make a business case to your manager,
Mm.
right? And say, well, here's what this is going to cost, but here's what I think will be the benefit, and here's what our company is going to get out of it. And if you can tie it back to business strategy, hang on, buddy. Um, what? Oh, okay. Sorry. Give me just a minute. Little coworkers. I, if you can tie it back to business strategy, this is really important, right? We go to our business leaders or whoever, and we just say like, "I want this," and they're like, "Well, why do you want it? And why should I pay for it?" If you can tie things in terms of what they care about, right? This is where influence ties in, right? If you can tie it in terms of what they care about, so you really want us to advance this project, and I think this is going to allow me to be able to be more productive on that project, and it's actually going to be worth $30,000 to our company in the end, and it's only going to cost $3,000. That's a pretty nice ROI, right? Now, there's a good chance they might still say no, and then you get to make the analysis for yourself. How much do I value gaining this skill? Is it worth me spending $3,000 out of my own pocket? And what am I going to do with it as a result? Does it only benefit the company? Does it benefit me long term? Am I thinking about maybe I'm going to leave this company in the next couple of years, and it'd be nice to have this with me? And you can decide, hey, do I want to invest in this? Maybe there's something you can do to make a little extra money on the side, maybe even using that skill. But I think it's really important to be thinking about, yourself as a lifelong learner, looking for opportunities for continuous learning. There are plenty out there that are free, right? YouTube, podcasts, LinkedIn is a great resource that I'm on every day. But maybe be willing to invest as well.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Love that. Love when family Zoom bombs calls. I love it. We are human people. Things happen. Hello, everybody watching. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon, morning, wherever you are joining us from. I know Rebecca's in Sweden, so it's kind of late for her. So thank you for joining us from wherever you are. I love the comments. Thank you for your engagement. I want to dive a little bit more into this idea of, so just as a recap, what we talked about earlier is that if you are interested in learning, and if your employer is not supporting your learning and development, but you know that this investment, the dollars, the time, the commitment that you are going to give to this learning process is going to benefit you, not just for the present, but also for the future, I say take that leap and do that investment. The reason that I didn't take the opportunity given by my employer was because it was very narrow. The content was very narrow. It was very focused to government, and it wasn't really going to give me the big picture learning that I was looking for. So a win-win ideally would have been, hey, I'll do 50%, you do 50%. You're going to end up getting like a super awesome transaction out of it. But also my ROI or my proposal was also like, I will also happily teach this learning to other people in the group. So you're getting like a much massive return on your investment. And it didn't come through. It fell through. They were like not happy with me. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll just deal with it on my own. But audience, if you're watching, don't be afraid to spend the dollars, spend the money on things that are going to enhance your learning and development. Now, I just want to loop back into, you had made a comment earlier also, but there's a question that I've been meaning to ask you, which is, what exactly is a right career? So when we are in the state of burnout, there's a lot of people who pivot. I pivoted. There's a lot of people who come to a state, and I've seen this comments on my TikTok where
Mm,
people will just say, I am done. I can't do this anymore. I don't think I want to do this job anymore. A lot of public health, healthcare nurses, physicians are moving out of their scope of work to do something different.
mm,
I still love public health. I still love healthcare,
yep.
but that wasn't the right career for me. So, what is your definition or some a framework for a right career?
That's like the $1 million question, right? If I could just
Let's
sprinkle some
go.
dust and give everybody their right career and also help you find your purpose as well, right? In life, the other $1 million question, what career should I be in? What's my purpose? Look, there's a lot of factors to this. I think that at the core, it starts with the foundation of self-awareness and self-reflection. Something most people don't take much time for. I talked about the early morning routine earlier. This is really the important thing here is you find a way to take some time in a quiet place for 30 minutes or more with a notebook and a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, like seriously quiet space, no demands, and start writing about how did you get to where you are right now? What do you enjoy about your career right now? What do you not like? What is really bothering you and driving you crazy? Or stressing you out. And sometimes it's the whole job and the industry or the career. Sometimes it's just your boss. Sometimes it's just one coworker, right? Like get honest about what is that thing that's really giving you problems. And then start to think about, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your values? What are the things that you care about? What are your energizers, right? The things that really light you up. I did a LinkedIn post about this week, laying out some of these questions. And I think it's really important. And then think about, what are you curious about, right? What do you want to learn about?
Mm,
What's important to you in life? Do you have a mission or a purpose, right? But getting back to curiosity, this is a really important one because a lot of times people say things like, "Oh, follow your passion," right? And you'll never work a day in your life. And I see you're shaking your head, right? Because first of all, what the hell is my passion? I don't know. Like, what if I don't know what my passion is? And second of all, what if my passion is painting? Like, that
I
doesn't
know.
really, except for a select few people, like it just may not pay the bills, right? My passion is traveling with my family. Like that's great. I mean, I know a couple people who have gotten, influencers have gotten sponsorship to travel, but like it's probably not going to happen, right? So you got to find something to pay the bills. I'm a much bigger fan of following your curiosity, right? What are you curious about, right? What do you want to learn about? What are you interested in? And remember that you have a long career ahead of you, right? If you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, even your 50s, like you still have time to do different things. I think a lot of people get really afraid, like, well, I already did my training in this, right? I'm 4, 5, 7 years into this thing and I can't pivot, right? Like Sumana, you talked about making that shift from
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, right? And it's like, oh, I've already done all this work. And it's even heavier if you've actually like gone to medical school, right? Or you've gotten a law degree, right? That's a lot of work and a lot of money. And so there's a lot of guilt that comes with making that switch. But you've got to ask yourself, what's really serving you? Is it really serving you, or do you want to try doing something else? And then what are you curious about? And be willing maybe to try it either as a side gig, side job, a project, or maybe even dive in full time and say, I'm going to give this 2 years. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. I tried it and I'll go do something else. It's always a hard decision to make, but you've got to, first of all, you got to put your health and your sanity first, right? Like what,
Mm.
and again, going back to like getting honest about what is really stressing you out. Now, there are some jobs, like you said, like nurse, whatever, where there are demands on you all day long, and there's not much that you can do other than maybe walking away from it. But I
Mm.
also think there are a lot of people who stress themselves out in corporate jobs, right? Because they just feel like there's pressure and demands all the time when they could push back on their boss and say, look, I'm not going to work more than 50 hours a week. I've got this and this, and I'm just not going to do this. And if that doesn't work for you, I'll go somewhere else. But if it does, and most of the time, they're probably going to want to keep you, right? So you might be able to push back on things, but if it's really not serving you, you might want to try something else and maybe follow your curiosity. And again, this is a tough decision to make. So one more thing I'll add on that. Something I do when I'm considering a big decision like this is I consult my future self, right? So I'm 42, right? So I might ask my 50 or my 60-year-old self, or even my 90-year-old self, like, hey, what would you what do you want me to do? What would you have wanted me to do? And
Mm.
it seems simple and also kind of crazy, but oftentimes we know the answer, right? Like, yeah, I'm scared to do this, but if I'm really honest, if I think about it, looking back on my life from the end, I'm probably going to regret if I don't give it a shot, right? Like I've
Mm.
always been curious about um, whatever, like tech, about Web3, and I want to try to get into that space. So, but I'll regret it if I don't give it. It's scary, but I'll regret it if I don't give it a shot. So then, like, give it a shot, right? Ask your future self, what are they going to care about, and let that guide you. And your future self may usually knows the answer. Mine does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love all of that. Follow curiosity. I think we should write that somewhere. I'm gonna put it
Yeah.
up on my wall, right? Just follow curiosity. I remember the pivot or the question in my mind about is healthcare. Again, I'm not a big fan of what are you passionate about? I
Right.
remember people, I almost gag when say, oh my God, follow your passion. I'm like, dude, I'm passionate about like 100 different things. Maybe today I'm passionate about making YouTube videos or TikToks, and then tomorrow I could be passionate about making I don't know, podcasts. But that's a really difficult thing when young millennials and young entrepreneurs or even young professionals are diving into their job. And the other thing that I wanted to kind of pick your brain on a little bit was about negotiating, right? They
Mm.
don't teach this. They didn't even teach me this in grad school. The art of negotiating. Hey boss, I am overwhelmed, or don't have to use that word overwhelmed. These are my projects. These are my priorities. This is how I manage my time. This is how I want to manage my team. These are some skills that we don't necessarily learn in school, and you're expected to just learn at the job. But if your boss is not mentoring you the right way, and if you can't negotiate, if you can't communicate, then you are at a point of burnout where you're not delegating, you don't have that matrix to figure out like what's urgent. Everything goes in the urgent box, and you're like, I have 100,000 things I need to do. So my question to you is, what are some steps that young professionals can take to learn the art of negotiation a little bit so that they don't burn out, they can stay in their careers long term, and if they want to pivot, there's an idea
Yeah.
called job crafting, which I talk about, where employees can negotiate with their employer and say, I
Mm.
would love to maybe for 6 months do a
Yeah.
secondment, try a different job. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that. And first and foremost, I will say I'm not an expert in this area. I don't have a lot of experience with this. I have tried to kind of negotiate things in the past when I was in corporate jobs that it didn't work out very well for me. But some of that was just because I had managers that just weren't open to it. But first of all, I would get really curious here and find out what other people have done, right? Talk to
Mm.
colleagues, coworkers, friends, who has negotiated a part-time or working remotely, or changing their role slightly to fit their strengths, or making getting a raise because they're taking on more responsibility. Find out who in your organization has done that in the past, and see if you can ask them questions, do an informational interview. You can also post on social media, right? Or connect with people on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and find out what other people have done. You can listen to podcasts, listen to, sessions like this. There are also books and courses out there, right, about negotiation where you can learn more about that. I think this is something I've struggled with my whole life, right? I struggled a
Mm,
lot with fear, especially fear of rejection. And so
mm.
I spent a long time not trying to do the things that I really wanted to do or asking for the things I wanted because I was so afraid. And I did a lot of work to overcome that, right? A lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of talking to people, a lot of trying things. One thing that I learned that I really adopted was this idea of starving your fears. I got this from a book called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. I read many years
Yes.
ago. He said that in that book that, fear holds a lot of people back from doing all the things that they want to do, right? And that the thing about fear is the longer you let it sit there, the more it grows, right? And fear feeds on time, right? So as soon as you recognize that fear, you actually starve that fear by taking action right away. So I adopted a mindset for a while that I was big on, starve your fears. That was a hashtag I used in all my posts. All my friends knew me for that. I was doing a lot of scary things, to kind of get past my general fear. And I tried to get good at sales too, which is like really hard when you're afraid, your fear of rejection. And now I'm running my own business. I'm having a record year. I'm selling services left and right. And it's kind of crazy to me. And it just comes down to talking to people and like finding out what they need and offering it to them and not worrying so much, kind of removing yourself from that possible rejection because they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting that thing, right? It might be not for
Mm.
them right now. So I think when we're talking about the negotiation, what we're really talking about is figuring out, what is it you want. I assume you're going to make a decent business case, right? There's going to be a good reason for it. Like, I want to work part time and I think that I can still deliver this much value for this salary or whatever it may be. I'm sure you're going to come into it with a rational place. Then the biggest thing that's holding us back is fear, right? We're afraid of being rejected. What are they going to think of us, right? When we're willing to get past that and just ask for the thing we want. And by the way, you're talking about burnout. A lot of burnout, I think, I'm not an expert on this, right? But a lot of burnout, I think, comes from stress, right? Being really stressed
Mhm.
in jobs. And I was at a seminar once with Tony Robbins, and I heard him say this that stuck with me for a long time, that stress is what busy or what like corporate professionals or busy people call fear, right? It's essentially fear. Stress is fear, right? You are afraid that you're going to fail, that you're going to be rejected, that you're not going to be enough, that like your boss is going to not approve of the work that you're doing. You're afraid of what's going to happen, right? So it's recognizing fear. What are you afraid of? And then taking action anyway, right? Because your livelihood may depend on it at this point, right? Your health and your wellness might depend on it. Do you want to keep on living in that same situation? Or do you want to do this one scary thing and have that conversation? And if your boss rejects you, then maybe that's, it sucks in the moment, but that might be your signal that it's time to leave and it's time to go do something else, right? That happened to
Yes.
me. I went to a manager years ago. I was working for a big company. I felt like I was in a job that didn't serve me that well in my strengths, take advantage of my strengths. And I went to him and I said, hey, I think, I'm in this analytical job. I'm much more of a people person. I think it would be beneficial for us both if I spent more time in the field, like working with people. And this is how I think it would benefit the company. And he basically said, no, get back to work. Like, that's not your job. This is your job. And, it hurt in the moment, right? But that's how I knew I don't need to stay at this company, right? I need to go do something else. I'm grateful that he did that because it sent me to my next job, which like helped me get to where I am today and absolutely love where I am today. But I tell this to companies all the time because if he had said, yes, let's create something around your strengths, I might still be there today. And that was 15 years ago. You just never know until you ask.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I was also in a job where I'm like, my biggest strength is not analytical. I get
Right.
analytics. I
Right.
love the logic part of it,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm a
could do
people
Excel all
person.
day, but it's not what I want to do. Right.
And he didn't like it either, Andy. He said, you know what? No, go back into your job. And then a few years later, I'm like, see you later. I got to go.
Right. Exactly. See, you did the right thing, right? But what if he had created that job for you, right? You might still be there and you might be happy and they might be happy. Like, it worked out fine for everybody. Like, for those who are listening and watching who are managers, like, you have so much opportunity and power to really enable other people to excel in their careers. And all it takes is getting past your ego, right? It's putting your ego aside and saying, it's not about me or my own success. Let me focus on helping these other people become successful. And I have faith that by helping them become more successful, I will become more successful. And that's your freaking legacy right there. I talked about legacy at the very beginning of this interview. People, when you help other people become successful in their careers, they remember you forever. They never forget. And that's why, like, I'm focused on doing that. I want to inspire other people to do that as well. So hopefully for the managers out there, you're paying attention and looking for opportunities to do that.
Yeah, I really think it's important for managers to pay attention to this exact thing because all of your, I would say this to my teammates, I would say you guys are all very different with very different skill sets and strengths and weaknesses. I can't expect all of you to do the same job. I'm going to try to give you different things so that you can be the best in maybe 80%. Of course, there's things in your job that you're not going to love. I don't love the HR component of my job, but there's things you have to do. But let's focus on 80% or 90% of the job that you love. This is your strengths. But if you're going to tell someone like me who doesn't quite love sitting in front of a computer to code, and you want me to code for 8 hours a day, I'm not going to be a happy person after the 8 hours is done. I'm going to be very grumpy. I'm going to be really stressed out. I'll take that stress to my home, and then before you know it, that burnout creeps up. And like you said, burnout is that stress response when our body is constantly fight or flight. It isn't good for our body to be in that state at all. You lost sound. Did you lose my sound, or can you hear me? Andy, did you leave? Why? I don't know. Did you? Andy lost my sound, so he's going to try to fix that. Matt, maybe you can help Andy while he's figuring that out. Maybe something happened. I think the universe today is just like, let's just throw all the curveballs at Sumana and Andy because what happened? Oh no! Can you hear me? Or can you unplug? Oh no, he's gone. Okay, he's gonna come back. That's okay. While he comes back, let's talk a little bit about he's gonna go and do his thing and come back. Okay. We lost sound. And that's okay. He'll come back. Can you hear me now? I can't hear you. Your audio just disappeared. I can't hear you at all. I don't know what happened. So we'll sort that out. Did your mic get unplugged? Oh, Andy, did Andy's mic get unplugged? Mine's okay. I haven't really touched anything. I've been like in the same spot here. But audience, if you have any questions for Andy, now is a great time to ask him while we still have him here for a few minutes. So put your questions there in the comments. Vinay is having a conversation with Ty. He says we are. Oh, I hear something. What
Can
do I
you hear
hear?
me now?
Yes.
Yeah, the mic is not working, but I've got other input. So
Okay,
let's go.
good. Let's go. I forgot what I was saying. That's okay. It doesn't matter. I think what I wanted to end the conversation was by asking you a little bit about feedback and mentorship. I know mentorship is really important for so yeah, we're talking about negotiation. And while negotiation can be a little bit tricky and difficult to do with your employer, a really easy solution is just to go and have a practice session with a mentor or with an ally that you
Yeah.
are comfortable talking with, or someone that you know even on LinkedIn, to do a one-on-one and have that conversation with. What are your thoughts or steps that you would take for people who don't really have a mentor, are looking for a mentor? What can they do?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. I got the mic working again too. I don't know
Yes.
what's going on. Technology fails today left and right. Like the sound just went out and like other applications were opening. I don't know. But anyway, we're here. This is a question that comes up a lot, and it's a tricky one, right? Some organizations have formal mentorship programs, and so I always advise taking advantage of that if you can. Most do not, right? So you want to find a mentor. I think the first step is asking yourself, why do you want to mentor? What are you trying to achieve? Like, what is the thing? Is it just, hey, I feel like I just want to up my game and, help with things that I may not see? Or are you trying to get to a specific role? I want to get to director of finance. And so you might want to find a mentor who has done that thing, right? So
Mm,
important to start with understanding, that self-awareness, self-mastery, as Rebecca mentioned in the chat. What is it that you're trying to get better at? And then can you target, find somebody who has done that thing, right? Or might have knowledge of that thing. So, starting inside your organization is always great, right? If you start networking with people who have done the thing that you've done, right? Find a vice president of finance. You might not know them that well. I would start with humility and reaching out, networking, and asking that question, can we get a cup of coffee? Can I just ask you questions about your career? What I like to refer to as the informational interview, right? Can I ask you questions and just learn from you? Like, how did you get to where you are? What do you love about it? What has not worked? What are some of the mistakes that you've made? Most people will often say yes to this because people love talking about themselves and sharing their stories, and they don't often get chances to do that, right? And so you're giving them an opportunity, and people love helping others. You may have to follow up a couple of times, right? Because everybody's busy. You can also go outside of your organization. LinkedIn is a really great place to do this, right? By reaching out to those people that have done the thing that you've done. Again, go to LinkedIn, search for director of finance or VP of finance, right? Or whatever the thing is. Send that connection request and ask, hey, like, you're doing this job that I want to do. I would love to ask you some questions about how you got to where you are and just learn from you. And this is the key thing. You're not asking them for anything other than them sharing their story and their advice. Don't go asking to people like for a job. Like, hey, I see you're in this position. Like, can you give me a job? That puts people in a really awkward position, and that's where they're gonna say no. And then the other thing is, like, I feel like, and Samana, I'd be curious about your perspective here, but sometimes people shy away from the formal mentor title, right? If you ask them like, "Will you be my mentor?" It feels like a lot of pressure. Like, I don't know, but you can get around that by just having that first conversation and saying, "This was great. Can we do this again? Can I just talk to you once a month about what's going on?" And if they like you and you like them, then chances are they're going to do it. So I would start there. It usually comes from networking, having conversations either inside your organization or getting on LinkedIn and connecting with people and just asking them if they have the time and the willingness. And if not, do they know somebody who maybe does? You can also go to like university alumni programs too, right? And find
Yes.
people. People love helping those from their school, right? They have that affinity, that loyalty. And there's even like this, there's like some level of like, well, if I help them, that's going to be like, they're going to be more successful and our school is going to be more successful, whatever it may be. So you could also like filter on LinkedIn and look for directors of finance that went to your alma mater, right? And they're even more likely to help you. So I look for those as well. Like, what are the things that you have in common?
Yeah, and even for me, when I was really lucky that I had a mentor basically since I finished undergrad until I became a manager, and then I lost that mentorship a little bit just because the job was a little bit different, our organization was a little bit different. I really missed that mentorship because the mentor played such a critical role in my learning and development, but also kind of pushing me to be like, oh, are you going to do a master's degree? Are you going to do a PhD degree? This is what it's going to look like, or working through some of the challenges as a young professional. If you're in your 20s, I highly, highly recommend that you find a mentor that you can connect with. And it is, yeah, you're right, it is hard. I don't think we ever had a conversation where I said, hey, do you want to be my mentor? I think it was just an organic relationship that formed, and it was just very mutually beneficial. And we work really well together. So that energy and the vibe and that synergy needs to be there when you're looking for a mentor. However, now in the business world, I think you have to be even more critical and a little bit more strategic looking for a mentor, because you could be an early stage startup or someone who's more advanced, or maybe you want someone. For me, I know at the moment right now, I would love a mentor who is probably in the tech space a little bit, because that's where I don't have a lot of expertise. I don't really want a mentor in the healthcare public health space because I think I know most of it. I have a pretty good network of people. So expanding and identifying what are some of your weaknesses and how can that mentor benefit you, I think that's a really good strategy as well. Don't look for a mentor that's exactly like you. What's the benefit then? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, diversity of thought is so important these days, especially when you are looking to become a mentor. I'm learning this more and more as I've delved very deeply into the DEI space and how to become a better ally. Is look, we all want like. I think of this analogy as we're on a mountaintop, right? And we're climbing a mountain. There are always people going to be ahead of us. There are always going to be people behind us, right? And so we're always going to need help from others, and we can always reach back and help other people. And so I think it's important if we're, to ask for and receive help, but also to be doing things to help others, to mentor others. And we can be getting out of our comfort zone, out of our network to mentor people who don't look like us, right? Who don't come from the same background, like men mentoring women, white people mentoring black people, right? Like we can do this. And this is how we help people from underrepresented groups come up because they don't have as many people in their group who are at the top, right? Like, quite frankly, like as a white man, like most people still in executive roles look like me, right? And I can recognize that and I can give a hand to people who don't look like me. And if you're in a company you can do this and open doors for people. And that's called sponsorship, which is even more important for helping people in underrepresented groups, in roles that maybe they want to move up. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and trying to find more ways to do. But think about it in terms of karma as well. Like, if you want help from other people, find people to help, right? And I think we can all also learn a lot by getting out of our traditional circle, or people from the same background who think just like us. Getting back to that comment a long time back about making sure that you're learning new things and not just reinforcing the same old stuff. What other stuff can you learn about? Can you do reverse mentoring, right? Where you learn from somebody who's younger than you, who's figured out something that you don't understand, right? Like, I'm still trying to figure out TikTok. TikTok sounds like
TikTok.
you're on there, Sumana, right? So, maybe you can mentor me on that. There's just so many opportunities, and we really can learn from anybody and everybody. And we have an opportunity, I think, to teach and help lots of people. And I just want people to embrace that.
Yes, yes, yes. So anybody who's watching, help someone out. I help people out. I actually was running like a mini mentorship program for just people who are in the Masters in Public Health, because that's what I'm passionate about. I said, if you are an MPH grad, I get it. I can help you if you're trying to pivot into a different career. I just have questions about, which specialty to take. I know people in the MPH world that can support your learning and development. So I did a little bit of that in the beginning, but then I had to kind of put a pause on it. But now I'm mentoring someone else. So it is good to give back. So I highly recommend that you give back, and also be open to having these conversations where you're like, I am open. Even if you're on your LinkedIn profile, if you post a post that says, I'm open to taking a mentor right now, that would be wonderful, because I don't know who is open to having a mentor right now. So I know Andy has to go in just a few minutes here. So any last, I want to ask you one question. I know this is the thought that this was in your book where you said we're sharpening our saw. What can people do to sharpen their saw for the rest of the week as we're moving into Friday?
Yeah, the important thing here is to bring it all back to the things we talked about, is just to make time for learning, right? We talked about the importance of learning to help us move forward and become more successful in the future. We all know that's important. Like, when are you going to do it, right? Are you going to do it tomorrow morning before you start work? Are you going to take a lunch break tomorrow? Are you going to do it between 3 and 4 p.m. on Thursday and Friday? Build that time in. Ask yourself now, and then build it in. When am I going to make time for learning in the next few days? And how can I make that a regular habit, so I'm doing it weekly, if not daily, investing in my continuous learning, so that I can feel like I truly am a lifelong learner.
Yes, let's learn. Andy, thank you so much. I've loved having you here. Sorry for the little bumpy road, but we figured it out. We're good, right? We're
Yep.
experts here.
Yeah, that's right. We overcome challenges, as we did.
I love it. Hopefully, I'll have you back here again soon. And good luck with your day. Have a wonderful time. I'm sure I'll ping you and thank you again. I really, 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 really appreciate your time and energy here. I honestly love your book, love your podcast, all of it. So hopefully, we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much, Man. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who joined, the questions and comments. I absolutely love these conversations. I love what you are doing, Sumana, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. This concludes our workplace wellness talk session. I think this is number 4 or 3. I can't remember. I'm trying to do these monthly live sessions and bring a super awesome guest in our live show every single month. We had Jennifer Moss the month before. We had Andy just right now, who just left. And hopefully, I will take a bit of a break in July and come back again in August to do another session. I know everyone's really busy in the summertime. If you're watching on YouTube or on Instagram or on LinkedIn, I do appreciate your time so much. And thank you for all of your comments. Love that. And I will see you next time, whenever that is. Thank you for watching. Cheers.